This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good-looking friends. I have an update for you. Last night, the Heritage Foundation filed its Motion 59, which we'll get to in a second, in Harry's visa case. So for those that don't know, this case is about a Freedom of Information FOIA request the Heritage Foundation had filed along with Mike Howell, who was asking for records related to how Prince Harry, or shall we say the Duke of Sussex, was admitted into the United States. They're questioning if there was any impropriety in his admission process given his past drug use admission. So in this video today, I'm going to go ahead and break this down without boring you to tears so everybody can understand, especially if you're coming in on this either now or halfway. It will be able to catch everybody up to speed. But where we're at right now is the Heritage Foundation had an issue with the court's handling of the actual case. As we all know, we met a dead end in the last response where the judge had closed the case out saying that Harry's entitled to his privacy. Well, anyway, the main contention is how the court used what's called an ex parte declaration. These are documents submitted by one side, in this case, the government, without the other side, who is the Heritage Foundation, seeing them. The law generally discourages this practice because it disrupts the adversarial system where both sides argue their case. Now, if you've been following this with me, then you'll remember that Department of Homeland Security had submitted records or something to the judge that the Heritage Foundation was not privy to seeing. So this is what their argument is. So the Heritage Foundation sees this as problematic because the court's decisions seem to rely heavily on these secret documents that were submitted. The plaintiffs, Heritage Foundation, argue this didn't allow for fair adversarial testing, especially since the entire reasoning behind the court's decision was redacted. This makes it nearly impossible for the Heritage Foundation to file their appeal effectively because they don't know the basis of the decision. And the court didn't justify using these secret declarations in this document. The D.C. Circuit has clear rules that a court must justify why it needs to look at secret documents. And this justification should be as public as possible. Here, the court didn't make those findings, which is a legal no-no according to past precedents. So now, from what I understand, the Heritage Foundation is asking for the court's decision to be vacated, meaning canceled, and for the case to be reevaluated with proper adversarial testing. They're also asking for all ex parte communications to be docketed so they can see and respond to them. The Heritage Foundation suggests measures like appointing an independent expert or allowing further legal arguments on the issues raised in those secret declarations. Now, the Heritage Foundation feels that there was bad faith involved with the government side, and they claim that one of the government's declarations was made in bad faith because it maintained a GLOMAR response, basically refusing to confirm or deny the existence of records without any factual basis. This, they argue, shows a pattern of not adhering to FOIA transparency principles. Now, I don't find that shocking, considering who the administration is right now, as well as Harry and Meghan's relationship with the Bidens. Anyway, and the Heritage Foundation points out that this case could potentially affect FOIA requests in the future, because right now what the court is doing is essentially setting a precedent on how courts handle sensitive information in FOIA cases. If this ruling stands, it might allow more government secrecy in FOIA disputes, undermining the transparency FOIA is supposed to ensure. So the next step that we have here is the court will decide on the Heritage Foundation's motion to reconsider this case, and that's what all of this is about. If they agree with the Heritage Foundation in this argument, we might see a new hearing with more transparency. If not, this could possibly go into appeal and the DC court would look at these issues again. Do we think that the Heritage Foundation will take that step? I think so. I think they're not going to stop until they get a final answer of government impropriety. You see, the Heritage Foundation doesn't care that Harry is a drug addict. What they're focused on is finding out whether or not Harry was given special treatment and privileges as a result of being who he is. Now, I know there's going to be that one person in my comment section to say, well, Harry came in under the Trump administration, so it's Trump's fault. No, you're wrong, because DHS is predominantly made up of people who were from the Obama administration. And quite frankly, you all sound dumb when you say it, because when you go back to that point in history, the President of the United States had more important things to worry about than whether this prince coming into the United States filled out his paperwork properly, especially since nobody suspected him of being a drug addict or trying to subvert the Constitution and undermine our government. Nobody suspected him. He was a model citizen when he came over here. So why would the Trump administration have a need to focus and make sure that the process was followed properly? That's what he has people working for him supposed to do. And then besides, you had 4 years, Biden administration, to rectify this and to sort this out, but you didn't. So anybody that's going to blame Trump for this one, you sound ridiculous. But I digress. Where we're at right now is based off of the court to come back and give their final verdict. If they say no, this case is closed, then it will be up to the Heritage Foundation to decide whether or not they're going to continue and pursue this further in the appeals court. Now, unfortunately, I don't know how long it will take for the court to come back to give their decision, but I think it's a pretty safe bet to say that we won't know anything until next year. But who knows? It's anyone's guess. We might get lucky and a decision come back before the end of the year. The one thing, though, that I am curious about more than anything else is why was David Sherborne communicating with the Department of Homeland Security on this? It sure will be interesting to see what happens. I think one of the main reasons Harry was like, oh, I have no intention of leaving the U.S., possibly because he thinks or he's assuming that this case is dead in the water and that he's untouchable. I do, however, have a bit of concern with Trump's loyalty to the royal family. If it is discovered that Harry has been doing a lot of nefarious things here in the United States, which I could pinpoint quite a bit, then it could be more of an embarrassment for the institution. And I could totally see behind the scenes whoever the powers may be telling Harry, you know what, you need to go home if you want to save face. And I hate to say it, but I do agree with some of you who say nothing's going to happen to him, which is a frustrating thing. This is why I continue to stay vocal about his interference with our 2020 election, as well as the censorship stuff, because I do believe if Trump does know about these things, he might reconsider protecting him as a result of being a loyalist to the institution. Regardless of Harry being a traitor, he's still part of the royal family, and he knows that the blowback will then fall onto the institution and tarnish the brand and reputation. I think we all can agree that Trump has the utmost respect for the late Queen. And I don't think that he would do anything to embarrass the family because that is her legacy. And sadly, it includes this degenerate Prince Harry. What I find incredibly strange, though, is the Heritage Foundation and Niall Gardner completely ignoring all the voices that have been tagging and posting his name onto making him aware of Harry's interference with the U.S. government and our Constitution and the nefarious things that he has been doing to people online. The biggest argument in this case is whether or not the public interest outweighs Prince Harry's privacy. And the court ruled in Harry's favor that his privacy is more important than what the public thinks. This Rule 59 motion that they filed gave them the perfect opportunity to add additional information. And I think that undermining the First Amendment and our Constitution, as well as Harry's interference with the 2020 election, is justification to where the public interest outweighs Harry's privacy, especially if he is here as an unregistered foreign agent. The American people absolutely have the right to know about what's in Harry's visa, because if he is here attacking our Constitution, we have to defend it at all costs. And what's baffling to me is that the Heritage Foundation, their core mission is to defend the Constitution. So here's a perfect example that they could be using for their case, and they choose not to. Is it because Niall Gardner is from the UK and he doesn't want to embarrass the royal family and the institution? Part of me feels like that is why he continues to ignore Harry's involvement with the censorship industrial complex. He continues to ignore Harry and Meghan's involvement in the 2020 election. He continues to ignore the things that Archwell Fugazi Public Charity has been doing. Why? The only way that we are going to get heard is by making noise. So I ask all my beautiful listeners here, if you're on X, please shout at Niall Gardner and tell him to pay attention and ask him the question as to why he continues to ignore Harry undermining our First Amendment, Harry's involvement with the censorship industrial complex. Even ask him how come he is not talking about Harry's involvement with the 2020 election and how he knew about January 6th. Like, I can't be the only one screaming about this and fighting for everybody's freedom of speech and rights. It's yours to lose, folks. Do the American people want to end up like the UK, where people are getting arrested for simply posting stuff on Facebook? I don't think so. But if you sit back and do nothing, this is where we're going. And if you don't believe me, look at what's happening around you. There are many of you that have been affected by the direct actions of people like Harry and Meghan. So many of you tell me that your comments are being deleted. Guess what, folks? That's a form of censorship, and it will get worse if people just sit back and do nothing. Here is an opportunity for us to stop at least two people who we all can't stand taking away our freedoms and rights. Now, one last thing before I go, I'm calling upon my fellow content creators in this space, particularly the larger channels, to take on this challenge and dedicate at least just one video talking about Harry and Meghan's involvement with censorship. If we could do that, we will be able to get more visibility. And I think content creators need to understand that that's threatening their business. And by saying nothing, but knowing that it's going on, doesn't help protect your business. I mean, am I making sense? Now, the reason why I'm raising this and calling upon my peers in this space is because if censorship and suppression can happen to me, because it is right now, and I know many of you know that I've been stuck at 111 for the past 10 months, being prevented from growth as well as earning. But I continue to keep doing this because they are essentially violating my rights. And if it can happen to me, it can happen to any one of these content creators in this space. Now, forget about this channel for a second. I want to show you why it's so problematic, censorship on social media is, when it's being controlled by these globalists on things that they want you to see and things that they don't want you to see. One of my favorite news channels, Redacted, has almost 2.6 million subscribers. They did a video yesterday about a topic that YouTube is known to not only demonetize, but also shadow ban and suppress from being found or being recommended. I can't actually say the two words together because if I do, my video will get deranked per the algorithm. In any case, they did a video about the people who are not yet adults that are being sold in this country and disappearing. So yesterday, this channel had posted 3 videos, all hovering within the same window of time. As you can see, an account with almost 2.6 million subscribers. The one in the middle talking about the people who are not yet adults going missing and its source and who's enabling it and supporting it gets the lowest views. Now, this is not some one-off. We know that with this channel, the couple of videos that I have put up that talk about this problem have not only been demonetized, but also not searchable, as well as, in some cases, removed. Now, in this video, the middle one with 31,000 views on an account that's 2.6 million subscribers, they talk about certain people within the current administration of the U.S. government who is enabling and supporting this and facilitating it, essentially, through the NGOs. They also mention an NGO that Harry and Meghan are tied to, as well as the Princess Royal, or otherwise known as Princess Anne. I think we all know which charity we're talking about. Now, I know that this is an uncomfortable topic to talk about because we don't want to think of people in the elite circle knowing about these atrocities happening and not doing a thing about it. Let's take Princess Anne for a second. She has been a patron as well as president up until 2017 of this particular organization. There have been many instances where it's been reported of this problem happening, and now most severe in what's happening in Guatemala. I highly doubt that she hasn't been made aware at some point of the inappropriateness and horrific things that have been happening to these people who are not yet adults. Now, the one main role that I see the royal family have in this world is bringing attention and spotlight to the causes that they support. With their global platform, they have the ability to reach many. But in this situation where this is such a problem, massive problem, especially affecting one of the organizations that one of the members of the royal family support, why won't they bring attention to stopping this? Is it because this is a dirty little secret within the elite and the aristocracy? I think so. I think that has a lot to do with it because there are a lot of powerful people connected to the horrific things that are going on right now. And those in power and the ones behind this whole censorship movement have been a part of it. And this is one of the main reasons why these globalists are so desperate to shut people up. And you don't think Harry and Meghan don't know about it? Of course they do. Look who their friends are. It's why I get so upset when I see them hovering around children all the time. Look about what's going on with the information about the Baka people. You can see that there is a deliberate suppression of giving people visibility into that horrible situation Harry is doing nothing about. Do you want to live in a world where all this stuff is going on and you're prevented from knowing about it? Do you want your children to be surrounded by people who are acting as pillars in society, but behind the scenes committing these crimes against humanity? No. And that's the problem that we have here with these globalists, because they think that they can do whatever they want to anybody. And this is why they're so fixated on taking away people's voices, because they're getting exposed. They're getting called out. And they don't like that. Shows you right there, if Google was a pillar of society, they would prioritize these videos on this humanitarian crisis, but they don't. Instead, they penalize content creators for bringing awareness and exposing what these very same elite people who claim to care about humanity have been doing. If you're a content creator, especially those in this community, I call upon all of them to take this seriously. And even if this one video may not get the same amount of views as some of the other videos talking about the nonsense, it will reach someone who can take effective action to stop it. This needs to go to Congress. This needs the attention of the U.S. government, who's on the good side, to recognize that we have a threat here in the United States. What Harry and Meghan have done, especially to the YouTube channels, is designed to get us to quit, designed to stop talking, designed to not be heard. Anyhow, this is where we're at right now, and it's so important that people continue to keep talking about it, because Harry and Meghan need to be held accountable for the things that they have done. And I'm not going to stop, because I know what they have done to this channel. I know what they have done to other channels. And it needs to be fixed and rectified. The abuse and the cyber terrorism needs to be exposed in this military-grade censorship operation that Harry and Meghan unleashed on innocent people. That is what needs to come out. But what do you guys think? As always, I will be back with more content. But until then, please be safe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
I was such a fraud.